This video will cover the zoom images exercise. So we're looking at an example here of our finished product. You can see I've got 3 images loaded on the left, and then I've got an area on the right where it will zoom in. So when I hover, it loads the image into the div on the right hand side, and as I move around it tracks my cursor location so that it zooms in on the area that's over there. You'll notice that as I get close to edges, so I'm approaching the right, if you look on the right, it stops moving when I get to a certain point, right? So if my cursor is clear over here and we continued to move the image on the right, we'd wind up with white space over there, and we don't want that. That's the same on all 4 edges. So you get to a certain point where we stop scrolling in that direction on each side so that the image fills that div all the way around. Between these 3 here, if you click on one, it will swap, and then you're zooming on this one. If I click on this one, it will swap. If you just click back and forth, the images just swap back and forth. And whichever one is in this area here is the one that you can zoom in on. So that's the finished product. If we come to our editor here, I just created a new file. I called it zoom.html. You're going to want to make sure that you save it in your Assign07 folder. So I've got my Assign07 folder there. I've got my zoom images directory. I'm working just off my desktop here for this example. The images I downloaded, these are the images that I provided to you. So you should have 3 large images. If you mouse over it or you look at the properties, you'll see the dimensions are 1600 by 900 on all 3 of these. So these are large, higher resolution images. And then if you go into the thumbnails, you'll see that the dimensions are 350 by 197. The dimensions are important for what we are doing. We've got to know the size and location of the images in order to zoom in and properly move it around the screen. And then I've got my JavaScript folder with my jQuery in it. So we'll start with our blank HTML file here. Change my title here. I'll go ahead and include my jQuery. My JS folder. There's the file I'm looking for. Close my script tag. We'll come back and we'll add some styles. I'll go ahead and do my opening style tag. So we'll come back and change those. Let's go down into the body. In the body, we're going to set 4 divs. So we've got the 3 on the left and then the 1 large one. So we're going to do a div with an ID of small image, capital I, lowercase small, capital I, lowercase m-a-g-e. Closing div. Next one, div ID equals thumb1, thumb1. ID equals thumb2. And then we've got our last one, ID of large, image, capital I, lowercase l, capital I. So we've got our 4 divs there. If we go ahead and save that, I'm going to go ahead and this is the one I'm working on here, so I'm going to bring it up. You'll see we've got a white screen so far. Nothing to display there. Let's go ahead and set some CSS on those. So for the body, I'm going to set a background color. Darn it. Let's do pound EEEEFF. We're going to do div with the ID of small image. You'll see it's helping me automatically fill that there. Start with a width of 350 pixels. You remember that we already looked at the sizes of the images that you downloaded. We'll go to a height of 197 px. We're going to position it absolutely with a top of 20 pixels and a left of 20 pixels. Those will become important later. We're going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid black. So that's our small image. This is what we're calling the small image, is going to be this one right here. And then we've got thumb1 and thumb2 and large image. Next we'll do the div with the ID of large image. You'll see it's helping me out there. I'm going to start with a width of this one being 350 pixels wide with a height of 302 pixels, and that just makes it so that the top and the bottom line up with the divs on the left hand side. Positioning this one absolutely with a top of 20 pixels, so it will be the same top level as that small image on the left. However, the left of this one has to be over quite a bit. This one's going to be 420 pixels. Same border of 1 pixel solid and black. And additionally, we are going to set overflow on this to hidden. So we're going to load a very large image into that div, but we don't want to see the entire image. We only want to see what is contained inside of that div. Next, we're going to do the div with the ID of thumb1. For this, we're going to set the width to 170 pixels and the height to 96 pixels. Position is absolute again. We're going to set the top. It's going to end up being 225 pixels down, and the left will be 20 pixels off the left hand side. Same border. And we'll do the same thing with div with the ID of thumb2. Same width of 170 pixels, same height of 96 pixels, same position of absolute, same top because it matches up with the one beside it. However, the left is going to be different. It will be at 200 pixels. Same border. So that completes our CSS. So we have done the small image, which is the upper left, the large image, which is the one on the right, and the 2 thumbnails, which reside below the small image. two thumbnails are the same width and height, but they are positioned alongside each other. The left of this one is at 20 and the left of this one is at 200. The small image, the left is at 20 and the top's at 20. The large image top matches what's on the large image top matches up with the top of this one. They're both 20 pixels down. This one and this one are both 20 pixels off the left hand side. So they should line up like that. And we've got, have a look there. I must not have saved it. My CSS is not in there. Let's try that, see if we get a change. Much better. Okay, so now we've got our boxes showing up. So yours should show up like this. You should see, you know, it should look like that line continues across there, and that line continues across there, and these continue up and down just for alignment. How did I come up with those? I've covered this in other videos. Some trial and error, right? So you start by putting them about where you think you want them, and then you move them around a little bit to get them lined up just right. There's a little math involved there too, because you know how wide and tall they are. So just making them line up nice. The rest of what we have to work on in this assignment is jQuery. So under that large image, we're going to do a script tag. Type equals text/JavaScript. I'll go ahead and close the script tag there. I'm going to go ahead and put my HTML comments on the inside of that. And before that closing, again, that's for HTML validation. So if you run it through a validator, if you happen to have an HTML tag that's inside of your script, it will ignore it. So it won't throw HTML validation errors because of your JavaScript. That's the idea behind that. Inside of that, we've got our document ready function. So we check for document dot ready. Darn it. Function E if we use it. So there's our whole document.ready, and that closing document.ready will just move down the screen there. So the first thing we want to do is place our images. So we are going to place the 3 images on the left hand side. So I'm going to do a jQuery selector, $, and we are going to select ID small image, capital I. And we're going to set the inner HTML, or set the HTML of it, to be a given value. What we're going to put in there is actual HTML. We're going to put an image tag, so open IMG, set the source equal to single quote, single quote. We're going to set the width equal to single quote, the height equal to single quote, alternate text we're going to make blank, title we're going to make blank, and then closing image tag. So right there we've got the the structure of our image tag. The width and the height are going to be 350 and 197 on the small image. So remember, the small image is upper left, it is bigger than the 2 below it. 350 by 197, remember, is the size of our thumbnails that we looked at in that thumbnail directory. And then this image source, we're going to point to our folder zoom images /thumbs /car1.jpg. So there we're using jQuery to add this HTML into this div. After that, we're going to load the first thumbnail. So we'll do a jQuery selector, looking for the ID of thumb1. We're doing the same thing here. And so what I'm going to do is actually copy this text string right here instead of typing it out again, because much of it's the same. And I'm going to paste it inside of the HTML. We are looking for car2 on this one. Our width changes to 170. Remember up here we made it 170 by 96. So this is the lower left, 170 wide by 96 high. We're going to copy that and load the other thumbnail that's right next to it. So we're going to change it to be the ID of thumb2, and it's going to load car3. The width, height, and everything stays the same. I'm going to save that, come back and refresh our screen. So now you should see that you've got 3 images loaded into those items, those divs. Next, what we're going to do is make it so that when we click on this one, it swaps these 2 images, and likewise when we click on this one, it swaps these 2 images. So we're going to create a click function. You'll notice that in the code that I've provided, the image of the code that I've provided, are a lot of comments, that I think will be very useful to you, so you should look at those. I'm not necessarily going to type out all of those comments in this video. So we're looking at if thumb1 is clicked. jQuery selector, looking for ID of thumb1. Click event function for when it's clicked. Now, when thumb1 and thumb2 are clicked, they are very similar. And so once we finish thumb1, we should be able to copy and paste that as thumb2 with minor modifications to make that work. So when thumb1 is clicked, the first thing we want to do is create a variable called temp, temporary variable. Use the jQuery selector to grab the ID of small image, capital I, and get the HTML that resides inside of small image. So when the page first loads, the HTML that resides inside of small image is car1.jpg. So we're taking that image tag and we're storing it into the variable temp. Next, we are going to do jQuery selector. Again, small image. .html, and the HTML that we want to put into small image is what is in thumb1. So thumb1 was clicked. Thumb1 has an image tag inside of it. We want to take the image tag from thumb1 and put it into small image. So we're going to do jQuery selector, looking for the ID of thumb1 .html. So we have taken the HTML, which is an image tag, from thumb1, and we have placed it into small image, which is the upper left side. Next, we want to change the width and the height, because the HTML here of thumb1, the width is 170 and the height is 96. Those need to be changed to 350 and 197. So we're going to again do the jQuery selector for small image. Dot children. That gets us to our attributes. The width we want to set to 350. And one more time, do our jQuery selector, ID of small image, dot children, which again gets us, gets us to our attributes within it, and set the height to be 197. So now we have taken the image tag that is in thumb1, the image tag that is in thumb1, and we have put it into small image, and we have resized it from this size to this size. Next, we need to do the opposite. We stored what was in small image into a variable called temp. So we are going to do jQuery selector for the ID of thumb1 and set the HTML for that equal to our variable temp up above. So our variable temp contains the image tag from small image before it was overwritten. And again, the exact same thing, changing the width and the height. So again, our jQuery selector for thumb1 dot children to get us to the attributes. Change the width to be 170 so that it matches that width and height of that smaller thumbnail. And again, thumb1 dot children to get to the attributes and set the height to 96. So we've done the same thing 2 times, right? First we grabbed the image tag out of small image and we stored it in here. Next we took the image tag out of thumb1 and we stored it into small image, overriding that image that was in there, and we changed the width and height. After that, we have what was originally inside of small image in here, and we've taken that and we've stored it into thumb1 and then adjusted the width and the height to fit within that div space of 170 by 96. So that should allow those two to swap. I'm going to save that and come back here and refresh the page. When I click here, those two should swap back and forth. We're going to do this one next, but those two should swap and change sizes, right? Swap and change sizes. So next we're going to create when thumb2 is clicked. So it's the same thing with some minor modifications. So if thumb2 is clicked, we need to make this say thumb2 here. If thumb2 is clicked, again, we set a temporary variable getting the HTML of the small image, but we are putting thumb2 HTML into small image. The width and height stay the same. It's the same pattern, right? It's the same thing that we're doing. These 3 here have to change to thumb2. So thumb2, thumb2, thumb2. So be careful in your copying and pasting. Make sure that you change everything that needs to be changed. So basically here, 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 and these three right here. Make sure that they become thumb 2. We'll go ahead and save that and refresh this page. And now you should be able to click back and forth as many times as you want. Any pattern that you want, it should just continue to swap those back and forth for you. Okay? So now that we've done that, we have two other functions to work on. One is when we first hover over that small image, and then the next is when we move our mouse around that small image. So we will do when hovering over small image. We'll do a jQuery selector for the ID of small image, capital I, looking for the hover event and creating a function for hover. We will actually have a hover out as well. So for starters here, we are going to we're going to see which image is in the small image location to start with. So what we will do first, we're actually going to, similar to the swap, we're going to place the small image into the large image. And then immediately after that, we're going to replace it, the source of it, with the larger image. So for starters, we're going to do HTML or jQuery selector for large image, capital I, setting the HTML to be the HTML of the small image. So we do our jQuery selector, looking for small image, capital I, .html. So we take the HTML from the small image and we put it into the large image. Now we're going to set some CSS on that image that we put in there. So we're going to do a jQuery selector, again large image, children.css. The CSS takes name equal value pairs or attribute value pairs. So we're looking at attribute and value. We're going to do position, absolute. We're going to do that 2 more times. We're going to set the left to be 0 and the top to be 0. So we've taken our small image and we've put it into our large image, and we've positioned it inside of that large image. The next thing we're going to do is get the image name from the HTML from this right here. We're going to get the image name out of this source. We're going to get it down to just this, and then we're going to use that because our large image name and our thumbnail image name I've made exactly the same. So we're going to do some string manipulation to get the image name out of here so that we know which image to grab the larger size of. So I'm going to create a variable called img location and set it equal to the large image, children, looking for the attribute of src. So there we are looking at this variable here to grab this information here. After that, we're going to do a variable called /location and set it equal to img location dot last index of, and we are looking for the /. So we're looking for that last index of, which is index is position, right? So we're looking at, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. We're counting over until we get the position of this right here. Then we're going to do var image name is equal to the image location dot substring of /location plus 1. So we start counting from 0. So now what we should have is what comes after the slash, right? What we should have is this right here, car1.jpg, stored in this variable right here. So the next thing is jQuery selector for large image. Children width, we're going to set to 1600. Again, change the height to 900. Again, those are values that we looked at when we started the video, the actual size of the image. And then we're going to do again, large image. Children. This time, looking at the attribute. The attribute src we want to change to the zoom images folder / concatenated with this variable. So instead of going into zoom images /thumbs /image name, we're changing it to zoom images /image name, which means that we are going from the thumbnail image, the smaller size 350 by 197, to the large image. The large image is what we're loading into that right hand side. It's 1600 by 900, which is going to give us more detail. So there you can see the initial load. We positioned it at 0, 0. When I leave, it stays there. We haven't done the hover out yet. We also have not done the mouse move yet. So when the page first loads, it loads like normal. And when you mouse over it, it first takes this small image and puts it in here. It positions it at the upper left corner to start, and then after that we find that image name. We find that image name in here. We get that image name and we go up one level and we get this image to put in its place, which is 1600 by 900 pixels. we need our hover out, so let's go ahead and make that. Sorry. Closing curly bracket, comma, function, opening curly bracket. We don't need that one, we've already got it there. So you should see these match up right here, and these match up right here. So we've got comma, function. This is our hover out that happens right here. We will do large image selector, .html, .html, and we will set the HTML to be nothing. So it will empty back out and be blank. So let's go ahead and save that. Come back here, refresh the page. So now we mouse over and it loads it. We mouse out and it's gone. Over, out, over, out, over, out. That should be the effect you have. So we have one function left, and that is tracking our cursor location so that it moves that large image around. So again, there's a lot of comments in the image that I've provided for this, and some of these I'm gonna go ahead and type out because it's it's going to help you understand what we're doing here. So remember that the small image size is set to 350 by 197. And remember that the large image size is set to 1600 by 900. The top left corner of small image is 20, 20, right? 20 down from the top, 20 over from the left. The top left corner of large image is 420, 20. Still 20 down from the top, but it's 420 pixels from the left-hand side. The difference in size is 21.8%. To get that, we take 350 pixels divided by 1600 pixels equals 21.8%. If the x coordinate of the cursor is 120, which is 100 inside the image, then 100 times 1600 divided by 350 is equal to 457.14 pixels. So that is a general way for us to look at what we are about to do here. We're going to get the x location and y location of our cursor to start. So let's go ahead and do a function for small image, capital I again, dot mouse move. So we've got in here the result of these two x and y coordinates need to become the center of large image. Large image is 350 pixels by 302 pixels. The center of large image would be 175 by 151, or 420 plus 175 and 20 plus 151. So now we'll create a variable called xloc for x location is equal to, I'm going to use some grouping parentheses here, the event dot page x minus 20 pixels, right? We're 20 pixels off the left-hand side. We're going to take that times 1600. So I'm going to do another grouping outside of here and outside of here, and we're going to multiply that times 1600 pixels, so that first we take our page x minus 20, we take that result times 1600, and then after that we divide that by 350. Our y location, again, we do our event page y minus 20 pixels, add another grouping here, then we take that times 900 and then divide that by 197. So the 350 and the 197 are the small image size, right? The upper left-hand corner is 350 by 197, that small image. The large image is 1600 by 900 pixels. So we're getting the x location minus 20 times the 1600 divided by 350 to give us our x location there. So I'll add some more notes here. We are going to move the large image around based on the location of the mouse over the small image. The first one we're going to look at is the x-axis. Generally, first, don't let it scroll off the left-hand side. Second, don't let it scroll off the right-hand side. And then third, just match up the adjusted x value with the center of the large image div. So we've got an if, else if, else if. First thing we'll do is look at if the x location is less than 195. Now, many of these numbers came as trial and error, and you can play with them. You can try changing some of these numbers, and what you'll notice is that there's a point at which, when you stop it it's smooth. There's not a jump, right? And if you change some of those numbers as we go through here, you'll notice that there's a jump one way or the other. Like you get to the point too soon and it jumps to the edge, or something along those lines. And so a lot of that became, you can see there's a little bit of a jump there, so you could probably play with that to make it a little bit more smooth. So a lot of these numbers came from that trial and error, just getting it to be a smooth stop at that location. And so in the description of this assignment, one of the notes that I gave you is that if you move the boxes on the page, if you want to put these centered or put them somewhere else, you are going to wind up having a lot of trial and error down in here. You're going to wind up changing a lot of numbers in order to make it work, which is fine. It's a good exercise for you. I just want to make sure that you realize that challenge would be ahead of you. So we're going to do a jQuery selector for the large image. Children.css. Again, we've got attribute value pairs. We're going to set the left to be 0. So if our cursor location gets to be 195 over that small image, the X location, the left and right value, if it gets to be 195, we're just going to automatically set the left to be 0. So it's going to keep the left there, and it's not going to let the left side of the image continue to scroll into the div and give us white space inside of the div. Else if the X location is greater than 1415. In this case, we're going to do a jQuery selector for large image. Children again. Setting the CSS. We're still setting the left. Oops. But what comes after it is a little different. So we're setting the left CSS once again. We're going to make it negative because there we go. Make sure that your parentheses match up there. We're going to make it negative because we want it to, the left side right now is way to the left of that div, right? The left side of that large image, I can't move my cursor there because it's the image will disappear. The left side of that image is way over to the left. It's hidden, the overflow is hidden. So we're moving it negative. So we made 0 right here for the large image. So we're making it negative, moving the image this direction as we scroll over towards this side of it. So it's a -1 times 1250, and that's our right edge. Again, that's those numbers getting us to where we stop scrolling on that right hand side. And otherwise, if the X location is greater than 195, so our first check up there was if the X location was the 195. We're sticking with that here. Again, it's the same jQuery selector. Still looking for left Again, we're making it negative times a value. This is going to be the x location minus 175. So there our 175 comes back into play. So this third one is just moving it around, just centering it on the screen. So it's our x location minus the 175 that we had here. The center of the large image would be 175, right? So we're getting our x location on the screen and subtracting that 175 from it so that it centers what we've got on the screen. So if my cursor is over that headlight is centered. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. We've still got the Y location to do. And you'll see that the Y location doesn't change, but my horizontal is changing. You can see my cursor is at that fin. You can barely see that fin's pretty well centered in there. So let's go ahead and do the Y location. For the Y location, it's very similar. So we can take these and this is the y-axis. So the first thing is anything that says x location right here needs to say y location. We'll come back to the numbers. Let's change so you should have 4 that you changed right there to y-loc that matches your y location up here. And then we're going to have some different numbers because the height is not the same as the width, right? So this one's going to become a 171 and this one also a 171. This middle one's going to become 750. So prevent it from scrolling to the top. All 3 of these become top, top, and top. So the Y location up and down, we're setting the top. So the first thing is prevent it from scrolling off the top, so we set it to 0. Prevent it from scrolling off the bottom, so we set it to, this is going to be 598. And then this is going to be a -1 times the Y location minus the 151. That 151 again coming from our notes up here, up above. Again, these are a bit of trial and error. I positioned my divs on the page where I wanted them, and then all of this positioning is based off of where I originally positioned those divs. So if I were to move those divs, all of this has to change. All these numbers wind up changing. So we've got our Y location, preventing scrolling off the top, preventing scrolling off the bottom, and then we've got our just moving it around to match the center point. So we'll go ahead and save that. Refresh our page, and now hopefully as we move around it follows us on the right hand side and it stops there. It stops there, stops there, stops up here. So you should be able to zoom around, but now click and swap the image and go to another one to see how it works. Swap the image again. Swap again, and again, and again. And that gets you through the exercise on zoom image. And again, there's a large amount, like I just went over, um, that's hard coded. So because I chose to place these where I placed them, the numbers in the code are based on where I placed these on the screen. And if you try to move these on the screen and put them somewhere else, many of the numbers in the code have to change. So that's something to consider as you're doing this. So this first exercise, just make it work the way this works here. And then for your part, use your own images, um, make it work with your own images. It would be a good exercise for you to try moving it on the screen. Um, it would help you probably understand the code even more, give you some greater experience. Um, but in this exercise, we did a lot of jQuery, looking at being able to place HTML inside of other elements, um, using the children to get at attributes for setting those values, swapping images back and forth, doing some string manipulation in order to get the name of an image so that we can grab the larger size image. So there's quite a bit that we went through. Also, just getting the page location and being able to do that on the fly. That has a lot of um, a lot of different areas that you can use that in. So that will finish up our exercise on the zoom image assignment.